Welcome, Truth and Family, to another show, UAP Truth 33. I'm John, I'm your host. Today I'm going to be covering some old and new military encounters with UAPs, UFOs.
It actually happened. So there were 5 people in the airplane. Roger would have been sitting in the radar officer seat, which is towards the back middle of the plane. To the side of each one of them or behind them, depending how the chair's rotating, is a window.
Suddenly, his attention is drawn to something outside the Hawkeye. He and the entire crew watch in disbelief as a tic-tac object suddenly forms up on their E2 and then just as quickly shoots away from sight. The crew is left in disbelief.
We're going to go over the Nimitz, and I know that that's an older case that people know about that case. People are very familiar. A lot of people, those of you that don't know, Nimitz strike group was like battleships, nuclear submarines, and aircraft carrier encountered some UAP off the coast of San Diego. I'm going to go into that case, but I'm going to go into from a different angle because one of those craft at 24,000 miles an hour went into the ocean and a nuclear sub sonar. Officer reported that it was traveling under the water at 2 times or 3 times the speed of the fastest submarine known to man, which is impossible. But I want to cover that. Also, some psychological aspects of this encounter that a lot of people have seemed to not noticed or forgotten about. This detail was kind of like just glossed over. We're going to cover that. Today, we're also going to be covering not only these jets and these interactions with UAPs, but I'm going to go into some other things too. We're going to cover a multiple subjects today. I'm going to kind of be like scattershot. I'm going to kind of just throw a bunch of stuff on the wall and see what sticks. We're going to be covering some ancient archaeology type of things that don't make sense in the greater narrative of our reality. And I just want to include that and relate it to the UAP subject because it seems like this is all coinciding and coming to a head, right? You have these findings of these, it's obvious that some kind of advanced technology was used to create some of these crazy monolithic structures. And at the same time, when we're finding and discovering these things that are thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, we're also having an interaction with this phenomenon that's not only physical, but it's also psychological, some say spiritual, and just really anomalous. This phenomenon seems to know what we're thinking before we think it. And there's crazy claims about time and space. Let's get into it.
Well, one of the more spectacular ones you talked about, the Nimitz, the Commander David Fravor experience. So they're flying over the water outside of San Diego, and they think they see something below the surface, and which is large, and then this 20-foot tic-tac looking thing that's hovering over the water that seems to turn towards them and recognize that it jams their radar. It does something to block their ability to detect it. They have it on screen. They have video of this thing. There's eyewitnesses of this thing. They track it on radar going from above 50,000 feet down to sea level in a second. They don't know what it is. It takes off at an insane rate of speed. It goes to the cat point where they were supposed to meet up. So they have all this data.
And how did the thing know where their cat point was? So the cat point is, for those of you who don't know, that's okay. That's a spot where everybody's going to rendezvous and meet after this interaction, after this interception, I should say. So if anything happens and goes awry, everybody meets back at the cat point, the rendezvous point, to figure out what to do next, right? So that's their. How did this thing know, which was 60 miles away? And it appeared there within 30 seconds. And they calculated the speed it would have had to travel to went there, which is astronomical. But it's almost like the thing knows what we're going to do before we do it, this phenomenon. And this situation happens in a lot of different cases. Like people will The Iranian over Tehran. This was 1979. The pilot was just thinking about shooting the thing down. And then when he went to get the lock on it, all the controls in his plane shut off. It's a case. You can look it up. This theme that they know what we're going to do before we do it, the phenomenon, whatever this is, knows what we're going to do before we do it. It's like the thing can read our minds or something. And I know you guys are going to say this guy's crazy, he's bipolar, he's schizophrenic, and needs help. Maybe, but that doesn't change the fact that this is happening. You know what I'm saying? Wild, man. And then Hal Puthoff, he says a bunch of stuff real slow. It's hard to like even watch. Like him and Jacques Vallée. I mean, I love the guys. They're brilliant, but they're hard to listen to because they're so detailed in their explanations of everything, and they speak so slowly that you kind of it loses your attention. So we're gonna jump all the way to then where he's talking about what this phenomenon could be.
Talking about today. So as far as where they come from, or what they're doing here, I myself have written a paper called Ultraterrestrials, where I try to cover the gamut.
Get to the point.
And I cover everything, yeah. They could be spacecraft from some other galaxy whipping through here. Or maybe there's some Atlanteans left over from eons ago, and they're just kind of hiding out in the seabed or on some mountain range someplace. Or maybe some ET group showed up here 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and they're hiding out with some bases locally and so on.
I'll make you a copy right here. I don't care. I want to bring this to you, and I mean, I can explain it. I may just try to chop it into really short clips and explain it to you. But the fact of the matter is, once that object was underwater, right? So it went from 29,000 feet at 24,000 miles an hour. I want you to understand how fast that is. When we send a shuttle into space, you know, that's going around like 17,000. So this is 7,000 miles faster than a rocket shooting into space. So this is like faster than, you know, a rifle shot, man. And it goes into the water. Okay. So the other thing I want to point out to you is the nuclear submarine, the sonar dudes reported to Kevin Day that the object was traveling twice as fast as the fastest sub that we had. And that's just crazy, you know. And that's the story people forget. That's the story that people don't really understand. Like, we've heard David Fravor's account, and that was amazing in and of itself. But once I rewatched the History Channel's story on it, and when I realized that this object went from 29,000 feet to under the surface of the ocean at that rate of speed, I just wanted to remind you guys. And to say, now I believe that we have advanced technologies that we've been able to mimic some of the operations of these vehicles, but not that. We're not there yet. And I think it just goes to show you that this is definitely non-human origin. And that's the other point that I want to make here. That's one of the motivations that I have for this episode right here today, is that this case right here is one of the strongest cases for this being of non-human origin that we have. And I think it's one of the most important cases. And even though it was in 2004 and it was reported in 2017, and you know, we can't, and I know this case was one of the main cases that was spoken about in the New York Times article in 2017, and I get it. This is not a new case. To some people who aren't really familiar with this subject, though, this may be the first time they've heard of it. Because, I mean, I know people around me, they don't know anything about the Nimitz. They have no idea. So hopefully, maybe I'm reaching a new viewer here today that's coming upon this subject for the first time. And please, don't just take my word for it and what you saw here today. Do your own research, and you'll find many more cases besides this one. But I wanted to point out this one to make the point that this is clearly non-human advanced technology. These things, Kevin Day, this was his quote He said they were raining from the sky. It was over 100 out by Catalina Island off the coast of San Diego. Awesome case. If you knew about it, I bet you forgot about it. Because I sure as hell did. And I've read about this case. I've watched the episodes about this case. I know about this case. I know all the players that were involved: Kevin Day, Sean Cahill, Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, the guitarist from Blink 182. I mean, I could go on and on. They all kind of converged and investigated this. And Kevin Day and these objects were in the sky for 2 weeks. They had multiple data points. And let's not forget about the helicopter that landed after this and seized all the data and made them destroy all the records of this event. Yes, that happened. Kevin Day testified. Well, he didn't testify, but he told Christopher Mellon on History Channel Investigates that this happened. So here we are with men in suits, seizing evidence. It's a common theme that you'll hear about. The more you watch my channel, the more you hear about these things. Almost the majority of these cases, you have these men in these suits that show up and take everything, whether it's commercial pilots, radar data from commercial airports or military. It doesn't matter. These men show up, they take everything. And a lot of times they make people sign NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements, for those of you who don't know what that is. And more and more of these stories are coming out.
The increase
in
objects that we've detected over the past week.
This latest air defense operation coming just 24 hours after another object was spotted over Canada. U.S. and Canadian officials ordering it shot down. This morning, questions after more unidentified objects are discovered over U.S. and Canadian airspace. According to a senior administration official, this latest object was in the shape of an octagon, unmanned, and traveling near sensitive sites at an altitude of 20,000 feet, posing a civilian flight risk. First detected Saturday as it flew over Montana, President Biden gave the order to shoot it down once it reappeared on radar out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of military leaders.
We have been more closely.
I want to ask you guys, is this the famous 8 gun that Jake Barber was talking about? Could this possibly have been that? I just found this news report, and this just completely forgotten about after they reported on it one time, mind you. And it brought me back to the interview with Jake Barber with News Nation, where he talked about the egg gun, where he had the spiritual experience with a divine feminine presence. Interesting.
Scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week.
This latest air defense operation coming just 24 hours after another object was spotted over Canada. U.S. and Canadian officials ordering it shot down.
It represented a reasonable threat to civilian aircraft. Canadian and American fighter jets were scrambled, and an American F-22 successfully shot down the object.
And that incident coming just one day after another unidentified object was shot down off the coast of Alaska. 3 incidents.
Numerous sources are citing that a UFO crashed into a U.S. fighter jet over Arizona, forcing the $63 million plane to land because it cracked the canopy that houses the pilot. I'm Renee Lynn. This is the Higher Frequency Network. Let's talk about it.
I don't know about you guys, but she looks like she's about my age. She's hot. I figured I would just say that. But please, go to her channel, check her out. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description.
Have you guys heard about this? This is unbelievable. According to newly released reports from the FAA and military sources, an F-16 Viper fighter jet valued at over $63 million collided with an unidentified flying object on January 19th, 2023. This incident occurred over the Barry Goldwater Range, a military training zone near Gila Bend, Arizona. According to reports, the fighter jet was flying in restricted airspace when a fast-moving orange and white UAS, and that stands for Uncrewed Aerial System, slammed into the rear of the canopy, and that's the shield that protects the pilot. Fortunately, the pilot survived with no injuries, but the jet had to be grounded for repairs. The full extent of the damage, still classified.
So when those 3 UAPs were shot down, like it was a story for a day and it was forgotten. And then I saw that one of them was shaped like an octagon. It reminded me of Jake Barber, his account with News Nation about his spiritual experience when he was transporting a I believe that these are advanced human-made UAPs that they shot down. I don't think that they really have the ability to shoot down non-human UAPs for some reason. Just because of the fact of the psychological aspect that, they seem to know what we're going to do before we do it. Like the Iranian fighter pilot, like he was just thinking about shooting down the UAP. As soon as he went to lock on it, all the controls in his everything in the plane just shut off. He almost died. 1979, famous case, Iran. And then it brings me back to the Immaculate Constellation document where it spoke about the pilot that tried to lock on a UAP, and it was a group of them. And he was actually operating in this area. It was part of his operational area. And these UAP surrounded him and actually like bullied him and escorted him out of his operational area. You got to remember that. These cases, these encounters with UAPs and fighter jets are fascinating, man. And I just don't understand why mainstream media is not covering this. There's a lot of strange things that are coming to the surface that we are learning, not only about UAPs, but our history. People are starting to realize, they're starting to look at these massive structures that have been built, these monolithic, you know, like pyramids and the Serapeum, where they stuck these gigantic black granite boxes underground in these tunnels, and they put them in these galleries, and the tunnels are only like a foot wider than the boxes, and like the boxes, like today, we would like bolt slabs together to create the box. Now these things were carved straight out of granite to a high polish, man. Like, and we're finding these, it's just like that Italian group of scientists that have that, new ability to actually see structures underneath the ground using satellites. I believe it's like SAR, some new type of uh, technology that I don't really understand, but I do understand their findings because they show other cases where they know what's under the ground, like, and the images they were able to see from the satellite coincided with what was under the ground, which would kind of lead credibility to this new technology they have discovered. And they're seeing these massive structures under the pyramids, and they appear to be like pillars. They think maybe they might be like support for the because just imagine how heavy pyramids must be. And maybe they needed to build these massive supports under the ground because it's sand. I don't know. It's beyond me. But what I'm saying is we're discovering aspects of structures, and we're finding more and more every day, especially because they can see now underneath the jungle canopy in South America, and they're finding all these different structures down there. And you got all these weird, odd, anomalous structures in Peru, and these elongated skulls and all this. So and I'm not saying that these elongated skulls are aliens, but what I'm saying is we're seeing that there's a different chapter to human history that we've seemed to have forgotten and that we're rediscovering. And it seems to coincide with this whole UAP, UFO phenomena. And it's like Chris Bledsoe said, by Easter 2026, when the star Regulus rises above the Sphinx, there's going to be a new knowledge on the earth. And I believe that. And I think that this is what we're seeing, the process of this right now.
Of all these places, perhaps none of them so effectively convey this sense of mystery and wonder in so efficient a fashion as does the Serapeum of Saqqara. Entering the massive underground labyrinth, you're instantly transported to another world, to another time. The cooler air, the immediate darkness contrasting against the hot and the bright desert landscape outside, the cavernous, straight as an arrow system of tunnels, you immediately recognise the sheer scope of the undertaking, and the mystery only deepens when you see what the tunnels lead you to. 24 mighty, precision-carved, single-piece stone boxes and matching gigantic lids, combined weighing up to 100 tons, most of which are finished and polished so well that they are still reflecting light after millennia in the dust, all housed in sunken alcoves like the engines and generators of some vast underground machine. My name is Ben, and you're watching Uncharted X. Over the preceding 4 chapters of this video series, the links are below if you haven't seen them, we've examined some of the evidence that a form of ancient high technology must have been used in several aspects.
Please go to his channel, man. Check him out. He's an awesome, awesome researcher of this subject of Egypt and how these things were made. Just boggles the mind.
Of these boxes' creation. Technology that cannot be attributed to the dynastic Egyptians, nor achieved via the tools that exist in the archaeological record. From the unrelenting precision and flatness of the interiors of these boxes, to the mirror-like finishing polish of the outsides, to the challenge of quarrying, shipping, and moving such massive objects into these locations, the orthodox explanation that this was all done by a primitive ancient civilization with nothing more than hand tools and human power reveals itself as simply logically unsupportable.
I'm not saying that aliens created these boxes, and I'm not saying that aliens created the pyramids. But what I'm saying is, it's funny how this new knowledge that's coming to the surface through these people like him, people like Ben, you know, people like Jay from the Unity Project. I mean, these people are opening us up to a history that we didn't know existed. And it seems to coincide with this presence of UAP. It's just an exciting time. Is the point that I needed to point out here. Again, this is not an Ancient Aliens episode. This is not. I'm not putting forth that aliens created this stuff. I'm just showing you that our reality isn't what we think it is. And that's basically the moral of the story for today. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Share with a friend. Share it with 2 friends. Watch UAP Truth 33. I'm John. Till tomorrow. Peace. Stop recording, asshole.